every system, there's a signal, a pulse, a spark that cuts through the noise. Some call it innovation, some call it disruption. We call it the protocol. So plug in, power up, and follow the signal. This is Neon Protocol.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Neon Protocol. This is Gene, and I'm also going to be joined with Mark, Dame, and Dan from the Neon Protocol Committee. If you want to say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
And tonight we are actually joined with a guest I've actually been really excited to have on. His name's Geoff Crawford. I'm going to let him introduce himself in a second. But what I think is really cool about his story is we've been talking throughout this podcast and throughout our conversations is we want to see practical use, how this can be used practically, no longer being set in a special room where a special team gets the tools. Or we're talking about theory. We want to be able to really exemplify what people are doing now and why we don't have to wait till tomorrow to start making some of these moves. And Geoff's story is very, very cool in this regard. So, Geoff, I'm not going to steal any of your thunder. Please, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Your thunder's probably a little louder than mine. So, thank you.
No,
First and
please.
foremost, thank you so much for all jokes aside, and there are going to be a bunch of jokes in this podcast. But before we get to that, I just want to tell you how thankful I am, Gene, and to the rest of the team for allowing me to have the opportunity to come and tell my story. I'm really excited about it. And so let's get to it, right? So my name is Geoff Crawford. I call myself, I guess, founder and CEO of 824 Solutions. I'll get to that name in a second, but I'll walk you through my story. It's not long, but you got to just work with me.
Absolutely.
But it really paints the picture about how we got to 824. So it all started when July 6th. No, I'm joking. So I'll get you to out of college. My first job was with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And it was a great company. I was there and I told them from the beginning, I'm only going to be there for 3 years. And then I'm going to go to NYU and get my master's in advertising. And I was going to live in Harlem and work in Manhattan and make $1 million advertising campaigns and retire. And that was the plan. And so I was going to work at Enterprise. They had a great management trainee program. And that's what I did. I did it. I went full-fledged, and in 3-year mark came. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go. I was going to go to NYU to Stern School. So I already had it planned. And it was going to be $25,000 a year and blah, blah, blah. And I was ready to go. And when it was time to actually leave Enterprise, I was making $60,000 at the time. And my parents combined were making $75,000. I'm a lower middle class kid from Philadelphia, lived in a row home, and I loved every minute of it. So I'm not playing a sob story.
No.
But I'm just giving you the practical numbers.
Absolutely.
And and I'm having a lot of fun. So I go, all right, well, let me just do one more year. And that next year, year 4 of Enterprise, I'm now making more than my parents are making combined and having more fun, right? So this whole grad school thing, but I'm going to grad school. I made a promise to my parents, and it just kept being one more year, Gene. And then next thing you know, you look up, fast forward, and it was 25 one more years, right? And so, that doesn't happen, especially I'm 52 years old. In my generation, you don't work for the same company that many times, and so I was kind of what you call a throwback, right? And I got rewarded for that. And the reward was it got me out of my comfort zone of leaving Philadelphia. I thought I would never leave Philadelphia because there's no greater city in the world. And when I got to leave, I got the opportunity in 2013 with Enterprise Rent-A-Car to run our car sales division in Baltimore. It was a great opportunity. We had a lot of fun, and I had a great amount of success. I had a dynamic team. And within 18 months, I got the opportunity to run the 3rd largest operation in Enterprise Rent-A-Car in our DC market, a big whopping 42-mile relocation. But it was the best move I made. I took a place that was 3 stores and making no money, turned it into 8 stores, and we get through the pandemic. So I opened up 2 car dealerships during the pandemic when most dealerships were shutting down or whatever. So
Absolutely.
You can imagine March 13th was the first day of the pandemic. I never missed a day of work because we were first responders for what Enterprise. So, when we were there, Enterprise Rent-A-Car really stepped up in the time, and it's one of the greatest companies ever. And my son now works for them. So just to kind of show you.
Nice.
So I'm in it, and let's just say enterprise, one of the core values is you work hard and you reward hard work. And certainly because of my effort and energy, they were absolutely rewarding my hard work. And it got to the point in the middle of COVID, I was on the good side. I wasn't on like the side that they had to think about laying off. I was on the good side. And so things were going good. And we got to 2022, and the 2021 and 2022 were the best financial years of my life, at a time where I'm watching people die every day. And then more importantly, I'm watching people make decisions with their credit. I'm watching a minivan that was $18,000 on March 10th worth $24,000 on 2 weeks later. And there wasn't a mile difference on that car. There wasn't anything, so your whole concept of what you're doing. And I always believed everything I was doing that, and what the Taylor family taught us at Enterprise was take great care of your people, take great care of your customers, and profit and growth follows. And that is why during the pandemic, Enterprise Holdings shined during that environment, because we were fundamentally at the core about our people and our customers. And it resonated, and it's still doing that to this day. So
Absolutely.
I paint that picture to tell you that I started to have some cognitive dissonance as to what it was that I was doing. And I started to lose perception as to what was real, as far as I need, $10 million in my 401k. Like, I was living a life that I never thought I would imagine. And now I'm starting to not appreciate those things. And so fast forward, just to make the story get along, in 2022, I made the decision on my own to walk away from Enterprise. And basically my commitment was health over. It was 4 days before Christmas. My wife thinks I was crazy, right? But, it was health over wealth, right?
Absolutely.
And I was absolutely committed to that. And the representation of that was to walk away from a tremendous opportunity. And now, as Gene, as you and I talk about it, as I'm looking at my bank account now, maybe I shouldn't, but all, so that's how I end up leaving Enterprise. But what I definitely walked away with was 25 great, met my wife through Enterprise. And again, fast forward, my oldest son now is work. So it was all great. The Taylor family is great. I will speak to the mountaintops about Enterprise Holdings, best company. And so I was very grateful for that.
Yeah. And you hear such great things about their management training program. I mean, even when I was starting my career, people would say, if you can get into their training program, that's just one step up, at least in the geographic region I was at. And so you always hear great things. Now, for our audience, we are not being paid by Enterprise. We are not sponsored by them. However, Enterprise, if you are listening, we are definitely open to it.
Please contact endowment, neoprotocol.com.
Absolutely.
Gene Feldman.
I mean, we will.
To be honest,
definitely.
I was like President Circle at Hertz,
money.
and I dropped all that and switched to Enterprise. So, they've been all right.
So,
I'll tell you the story sometime of why I had to switch from Hertz to Enterprise. But
I definitely want to hear that story, Dan, for sure.
Yeah,
I still get a kick
it had
out
to deal
of it.
with car theft. Let's just say that. Anyway, interesting story. I'll tell you later.
All right.
Yeah.
So that will be on episode 52.
When the recording goes off.
All the best stuff is after the recording. Oh,
I know.
Man.
That's what she said. That's what she said.
Absolutely. See, that's why we need a subscriber channel, is so that way people can pay for the extra content.
Just a
sorry
little
about that.
Just
Yeah,
a little.
pay extra and hear Dan Meeks talk like a gunner. All right.
All right. So Geoff, so from Enterprise, what got you into VR? I mean, were you doing XR at Enterprise at all?
So that was it, right? So I left Enterprise and, health over wealth. And I took a year off. I got to get a chance to go to the Bahamas and India in all of 2022. And then I came back, and the reality is, hey, Jamie Dimon still wants his mortgage paid, and I got kids, finishing college and about to go to college. So, this was all cool, but I have to, the reality of paying bills. So health over wealth. So I got a recruiter, and I told him where I was in my life. I want to do something that has meaning, that has impact. And yes, I have bills to pay, but we don't need to be, thank you for what I was getting, but I'm at a different point in my life. And he put me down with this nonprofit called Vehicles for Change here in Maryland. And Vehicles for Change was this dynamic nonprofit who had this outstanding auto mechanic training program that they started in 2015, in which it was primarily, the goal was to train people that were formerly or currently incarcerated. And it was a really good program. That the overall program, they got these cars donated from the general public. They would get these cars fixed up. The mechanics would fix the cars as part of the training program. And at the end of it, what we would do is we would give them a car, and it wasn't a handout, it was a hand up. So they would pay us a portion of, so they got a car because transportation is the number one barrier to keeping a job. We got them tools, we got their laptop, and more importantly, we guaranteed them a job. And in this real life, it was a 16-week program, and we had over 300 intern people that were formerly or currently incarcerated come through the program. And of those, only 7 went back to jail. So that recidivism rate was less than 3%. The
That's
national
incredible.
recidivism rate
Yeah, it really
is 68%, right? And so there, Marty Schwartz, the CEO, had an unbelievable mission and was able to do that. And then one of their board members said, hey, well, we need to expedite the process of the number of mechanics we can train because our employer partners are dying for mechanics. And so, yes, our 16-week program was great, but is there any way we can expedite that process in order to maximize having more impact, more cars? And so the board said, hey, we have this virtual reality platform that they created. And then they opened it up to have a vice president of virtual reality to basically run it, right? They came up with the idea, but they needed someone to come in and run the business and hire employees and basically run it from scratch. So where I was, I had no VR experience. I barely knew how to use my iPhone, but I was very passionate about my community. And more importantly, with my success in enterprise, again, they teach you how to take great care of your people, great care of your customers. They teach you how to run a business. So I had no fear in starting something new. I did it so many times in enterprise where I came into a new environment. I told you about coming to Baltimore. So I'm going to bet on myself, right? So that's kind of what it was. I convinced the board and the CEO. I reported directly to the CEO. And in 2023, I became vice president of virtual reality. And within 3 months, I had to do an interview with CNN, right? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm confident, but I also have to understand that this nonprofit has done something real, and I don't want to be the jerk that messes it all up, right? So it was a lot, but fast forward, we were able to have a very successful interview with CNN, and that just opened up the floodgates. Now, what I was responsible for was selling virtual reality solution, and it was just for automotive, to 5 different paying customers. So it was to correctional facilities, high schools with career and technical education, or that couldn't afford a building in the career and technical education, so they wanted it. Third was community colleges, who oftentimes would want it to go to their technical program. Fourth, workforce development. And fifth was nonprofits. Now, just like we had mentioned earlier, gentlemen, notice how none of my customer base were enterprise accounts. It was really about getting with people who were helping out underserved people in both rural and urban communities. So I was tasked with selling our product to these 5 clients. Now, when that first CNN interview happened, we got a lot of momentum, but you guys know the deal. That's great momentum, but people don't believe that virtual reality is the way you can definitely train skilled trades. It's a toy that Mark Zuckerberg make and my granddaughter makes it. So me and Gene talked about that. I talked about how I had to overcome that objection, and I was able to, but they basically said, all right, when you prove it, when someone else is dumb enough to do it, come to me. And I said, all right, now if I prove it, I can come to you. You're going to pay. They're like, yes. Fast forward, April of 2024, we had our second CNN interview. So this is 15 months after the first one. And our first paying customer, of course, it was women, was the Maryland Correctional Institute for Women. It's a federal penitentiary here in Maryland. And they were the first ones to buy our product. And we were able to bring it inside a federal correctional facility and have a few cohorts of people. So there's an interview, the second CNN interview happened. Now, when that happened in April of 2024, gentlemen, that's when the floodgates opened. Right. And so now all these people we had here, those 5 clients, well, I say, hey, I'm coming to you when it's time. Now it was time. And that's what you started to see over the next course of time from April all the way through February. You just started seeing a lot of momentum of people signing letter of intent and people believing the outcomes that we got. So now it's like, all right, well, this is what God wanted me to do, whatever. Here I am. And in February, we were able to work out a agreement with the National Sheriff's Association. We worked really hard for that relationship. The National Sheriff's Association has a very zealous goal of lowering recidivism 40% by the year 2030. This was in 2024. I can get behind that. And I believe technology is the only way you can expedite it that fast. Exactly like I told you guys earlier, the business case for why Vehicles for Change wanted to bring it in the first place. So I understood that concept pretty well, right? And so now, now it was, so when we got the second scene interview, we got the National Service Association signed basically a national agreement with us saying that they had, at the time, I think 15 or 18 different sheriff's officers who agreed to this commitment. Fast forward, they're up to 38 now. So that was so February, I was riding high. I'm like, man, this is going to be great. And in March 2nd, 2025, out of nowhere, I was laid off. And literally nowhere. And there was some serious budget things that happened. And I was one of the highest comp in the organization, not to the level I was, but I understood it. And this is, that's the problem with me. That was my problem with being with nonprofits. They love the advocacy, but oftentimes you are relying on grants. And then once that macro environment changed, it really, and that really set me back, gentlemen. I'll be honest with you. Cause I walked away from it. I was almost at the finish line. And I chose to walk away. Everybody's telling me, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I'm doing for the good of the people. And here I am now unemployed. That didn't sit well with me. So in March of 2025, I went full-fledged into trying to find a job and work for go back to corporate America, do that thing, right? And so I paid for another recruiter. And one of the things they told me was, reach out to people whose job you want or whose companies you want to work for. You ask them these set of questions. And then at the end of it, over time, you'll build this rapport with people. And if you respond back to them with a recommendation, people will go, hey, I don't have a job available, but I got my buddy. And basically you backdoor your way to a job. So they say you have to commit it to this program. You have to make 25 outreaches a day on LinkedIn. You have to have 7 appointments. And I sold used cars. That's nothing to me. So I was able to do that, right? So I talk to so many people, Gene, all day. And I'm asking them all these questions and, and I'm getting all this information. And to fast forward and get to the story, guys, what I uncovered is hey, you don't need to get a job doing something else, buddy. You need to do your own thing. And you need to do and so after 6 months, 138 job applications, 36 responses, 34 no's, 2 interviews set up, which miraculously got canceled the day I was doing them. No job. So almost at the finish line, laid off for something I fell in love with. I love this XR and AI thing. I am only doing it for a couple of years, but I got a lot of momentum and I got this passion for it. And now I can't get a job in it. And now all my savings is going. Now my sanity, now I'm like, what is this? What's going on? So I said, if I don't have a job by September, F it. If I don't have a job by September, I'm doing my own thing. And if that means whatever. Now, when I said that, gentlemen, I meant half of it, but I was like, all right, I'm definitely going to find it. And it did not, I did not come close.
You weren't 2 drinks in when you made that decision?
No. Maybe I should have been.
So you're going with the insanity plea at this point. Insanity plea.
Like I said, hey, I need you guys as character witnesses. Gene, you remember, I need you guys as character witnesses. Just in case this thing doesn't, this podcast should help out a little bit.
Oh man.
So what ended up happening was I listened to what people said and I said, you know what? I use this example all the time. At my wedding, we had a company called The Best of Both Worlds. And what it was it was a group of people that were like a DJ. And they had a group of singers and they can sing up to 18 individual songs. Now, we weren't in the 18 individual song package, but we were. We had 6 individual songs. We had older people there. So this woman's voice was amazing. So that when we needed a singer for 6 songs, we had her. And then when someone else wanted to hear Biggie Smalls, we had a DJ for that. So it was called The Best of Both Worlds. Right. And so what I uncovered was I wasn't designed to work for somebody else and I wasn't designed to work for corporate America. And so in September 2nd, I created 824 Solutions. And what that was a combination of the 2 things I love. Enterprise, which was take great care of your people, take great care of your customers, profit and growth follows. now with my newfound passion for XR and AI, because I believe that XR is the interface for AI. So, and I got some skill in this. So I want to do something that combines both. And if I can't find it, F it, I'll just do it myself. So September 2nd, I said, I wanted to start the company that I always wanted to work for, and it wasn't out there. And basically Eight24 Solutions, what we do is we solve the problem of the skilled gap shortage and the shortage of labor for the skilled trades. And I don't want to hog it out. Hopefully we can get to a point where I can explain how I came up with those 5 skilled trades. And I don't know if this is the time, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there. This is a passion project for me, right? Because we're really solving problems. Now, at Vehicles for Change, we did a great job solving the problem of getting folks entry level to come in to be auto mechanics. And what the employers wanted were, hey, we want them to be able to do an oil change. We want them to be able to change a tire, and we want them to be able to change a set of brakes. Other than that, we'll teach them everything else, right? And so basically, that's what we learned. Now, my 5 paying customers, remember the community colleges, they all say, hey, Geoff, we love automotive and we get it and we see the business case, but we wish there were some other things that you would offer, right? And I always took that to heart. And part of my 5-year plan that I had made for VFC was to grow more than just one skilled trade. And so I always listen. So during that time I was off, guys, when I was asking these questions, I really did research, and I used the U.S. Department of Labor Statistics as the 2024 to 2034 10-year jobs report. And it really showed, and it was clear in that jobs report that skilled trades, but there's 1,100 skilled trades. So I said, hey, look, my competitors, I think they do a lot of things. They're very, a lot of things to a lot of people, but they don't specialize. I said, I don't want to be everything to everybody. I'm going to specialize in no more than 5 skilled trades. I'm already in automotive. So I want to be scientific about which ones we pick. So I had a criteria. I said, if there's 1,000 skilled trades, let me have a high mark. And if I need to drop that mark, I will. And so what I did was I said, here are the 3 criteria I have for what we're going to specialize in. Number 1, the average median income needed to be between $50,000 and $80,000 national. Number 2, I was looking for something that would show a 25% growth in its entry-level position, not in the market, right? Because I need we're working with underserved folks, so they're going to get that entry level and then create a pathway. So I needed something that had at least a 25% increase in entry-level positions. And then third was I wanted to have a significant growth over the already 4.5% growth they predicted for all the skilled trades. And so I wanted the best of the best. And so what we uncovered was there was 7 that we felt good about. Healthcare and solar, we felt weren't our niche because we don't feel as though that necessarily is going to help out a rural or urban community or the opportunity youth we deal with. So we landed on the other 4. So we had automotive, and now we do HVAC, welding, plumbing, and electrical. And that is all. Anything else? There's plenty of people out there. Me and Gene talked about it. There's other solutions. You know, I love what Skillberry's doing what they're doing. And I love, there's a lot of people doing a lot of different things. And so we don't need to be everything to everybody. And we believe that when we kind of inspire people, so if we just can stay, and one of my old enterprise managers told me, be an inch wide and a mile deep. And that's what we're doing now. We understand the 5, and now we got to get a mile deep in each one of those things.
No, so now wait. Hold on a second. Your story, you went from I, and now you're saying a lot of we. Who's we? Who did the research? Who are you? It's not you in a mirror. What? Who's the 824 team? Who are you talking? Who's we?
So great that you asked that. We've gone from just me to now, I have 2 what I call active teammates right now. One of them is David Greenberg, and David Greenberg was my director of curriculum and training with me at Vehicles for Change. And so it was just a natural transition to bring him over with
That's
me
cool.
over.
Yeah.
So he is now my current director of training and curriculum. So he knows my story just like, so it's like Tango and Cash, just in a different movie. The second person I brought over was a gentleman named Jayesh Chadan. Jayesh is out of Pune, India. I met Jayesh when I went to India in that one year when I was on my sabbatical, and I met Jayesh, and I loved him so much, and he did such a good job for us when I was doing that project that Jayesh came on board, and he was my VP of tech support and operations for us to get started out. And so now he was on this team. And then last, I realized, hey, we did these things at Vehicles for Change, but we've never actually went completely through a whole cycle of service with customers. And so we went out and we were able to attract my now Senior Director of Client Success and Impact, Mr. Joshua Shadrick, who has over 20 years of experience in the SaaS business. Now, I was able to recruit these folks with a very minimal budget. So you understand these folks are all about the mission. And then my last best friend, and this is a nice segue, is I have really gotten really good with AI, and I have a very good AI agent now that really keeps those things structured. So I went from laughing about that to it now being someone like, I feel like it's like a dog for like a canine dog, right? And I have this attachment. And that's the beauty of what we do. We practice what we teach. And so now we got people. And so now basically, I was just at the point where I was remember when everybody said, hey, prove it out, Geoff, and I got you covered. Well, I already know that's going to, so now I got I now learned what I learned from Vehicles for Change in the automotive solution, and then couple that now with the new 4-skill trades and everything I learned in between, we become a source now. And so now what I wanted to do, and this is what I had a conversation with Gene about after I talked with him in September, and figured out these 5-skill trades by January of 2026, it was go time now. Now it was like, all right, I know who my ideal customer is. I know where we sit with this. And more importantly, I know there's $9 trillion in this administration is about to come out, because that was the last piece. And me and Gene talked about that. The most frustrating thing was getting to a place where someone wants your solution finally, and you prove the outcome. And then now you got to deal with the hurdles of the logistics and tech, that was immature. That was things I just didn't know, that I'm not going to make the mistake this time. So that's why we're going to prove this concept out first with people saying, okay, if we agree to hit these outcomes, and if, that you will agree to do, and so now I'm just about proving these outcomes, which fast forward, our first cohort started May 4th, and now they're going to graduate on August the 21st. It'll be the first class.
Hey, congrats.
And we had
congratulations. That's awesome. 2
of our learners who knew nothing about HVAC, 2 of them, one last week, one on Friday, just passed their universal 608 HVAC. These are people who had no idea, and they were strictly going. So now we've proven that out. We're going to have this, and then that's when the floodgates are going to open. Now, that's where we're at now. So that's my whole story, and I will not talk this much for the rest of the podcast.
No, but the thing is that Geoff, your story is what's key to this.
Good.
I think it's probably going to be for the rest of the conversation. I think the rest of us are going to have questions about, because for me, that you didn't focus on enterprise. The 4 of us have been so buried in enterprise solutions, and trying, and that's where when you go to like AWE or AES or any of the big conferences, everybody's trying to get into the enterprise because they want the factory. They want the factory because that's the golden goose. But OSHA's stopping it or this or that. But what you have just
airplane.
you're actually doing what enterprises keep dragging their foot to doing, and you're proving out the use cases. I think I saw somewhere in some of your information that, like, for safety, big thing, OSHA always comes up, but apparently like a 43% injury reduction from being able to do this.
And that's at the lowest denominator. I'm being gracious. Folks are gracious with that number. It's
because some of these jobs, you can only make a mistake once. When you start getting into welding and you start dealing with like flammable gases and start getting into a lot of that. And so for me, it's really fascinating that because your success is on focusing on something that most people don't even have it on their radar. Everybody's trying to get to that warehouse.
And I'll give you where I got it. Mockery is the biggest form of flattery. The giant that when I started working at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, the giant was Hertz Rent-A-Car. And what they did is they were very big on the retail renter and the corporate renter, right? And that rental day back then was about a 4-day average rental. And let's say back then the average rate was $45 per day, right? That's $180 in a transaction. What Enterprise did when they got into the market, they specialized not in that, they specialized in the insurance replacement market, and they specialized in the dealership, the people who needed their cars because their cars were damaged, right? And so now what that was is that average rental was 14 days. So what Enterprise had the wisdom to do is drop the rate and offer an insurance replacement rate, which the insurance company saw a value in because that was an opportunity for them. And so now, yes, the price was half, so now an insurance replacement rate may be $25 per day. But if I'm getting 14 days at $25 versus 4 days at $4, you understand the economies of scale. And then you add in now, making sure you wow your customers and wow the people that are sending those customers. You're creating efficiencies for these insurance companies to want to partner with you. And that's how you keep the longevity. And that's how you keep VR as the longevity for it, because you have to make sure that you're serving the people who need it most. And in our example, the people who need it most are not the enterprise accounts. It's the underserved people in these 5 areas, because these are oftentimes the epicenters for those folks to come to. And so if we create a solution that's plug and play to give to these facilities, it becomes sustainable. It's not just a one and done, right? And so the reason why we can do this is because I'm not doing a Series A, B, C. I'm not owned by a company on Madison Avenue. And more importantly, I have a passion about the people we serve. Just like Vehicles for Change had a passion about the people they serve, just like Enterprise had so it's all consistent. When you really care about the end user and you create a solution for their biggest problem, then you're going to profit and growth follows. And now I have faith in that, and my bank account doesn't look like it right now, but we're certainly.
I think we're all in the same boat on that. This is a passion project, not a wealthy project.
But I gotta say, George just gave us like a master class and sort of, it's a sustainable sort of product concept for VR, right? He's not trying to say, Claude this, Claude that, metaverse this, metaverse that. It's what's important. And, I come from the same world of automotive training. So I love the story, right? Because in the end, it's about keeping people safe. Right? For UPS, it's about 50 years, no crashes, right? So, I think the story you're giving us is an amazing story.
And
right?
what VR does, it gives you confidence before competence. And then now it's like the calculator to the math teacher. When the calculator came out, the math teacher thought it was good. No, it's not. I didn't know why Sister Agnes had me doing long division when really what I wanted to know is, once we solve this problem, what are we going to do with the answer? And I think now that's what's going to happen. And we got to be honest, folks, that you got to go to where the puck is going. In the first $1 trillion company was August 1st, 2018. That was the first $1 trillion company in our startup. That was Apple, Tim Cook, and Apple. Since then, we now have 11 companies over $1 trillion. We have one that's got to $5 trillion in the back, and we have a trillionaire. So the number one commodity in the world right now is information. For the first time ever, it's more than oil. Right. And then now, if you look at kind of the groundwork now, compute is absolutely going to be what drives the American economy. Right. You're seeing Claude and Meta, they call it mangoes. Right. You got Meta, Apple, Google, you got NVIDIA, OpenAI, and SpaceX. And now you see these folks go into China. Like, I don't do politics, gentlemen. These are folks going to China to speak to people.
We only tell it as it is. No politics here.
Yes, but compute is it, right? And when you're seeing Google spend $300 million to train their own people, that is how bad this is, right? These data centers can't, and I know it's a sore subject, but the best good is going to happen. There's going to be data center solutions that are going to come to be good solutions, right? It's bad now, but we have an ability. There's going to be so much good that's going to come from it. And that good's also going to be able to be equated to ROI. That's why I'm excited that more people like me are coming into this field, because we're bringing that P&L and that, hey, I know how to communicate your language, and we're not going to deviate from getting these outcomes. And I think that we keep surrounding it's like you can't beat Thanos by yourself. Right? You got to have a bunch of people to, and that's what I'm doing now. I feel like I'm Chuck Daly, and I'm going out there now, and I got my own team, but I'm also getting people who've done this for a while. I'm being humble to them, but like, hey, look, we got to go get Thanos, right? And he's got 5 rings on, right? We got to make sure, so it's like, but we, and so my company's named after Kobe Bryant. Then he wore the number 8 and he wore the number 24. I'm from Philadelphia. And he has this thing called a Mamba mentality. And what it was 5 principles of the Mamba mentality, which are also now my 5 core values, which is you are to be fearless, obsessive, passionate, relentless, and resilient about every single blanking thing that you do. That's how he was. He was a social derelict, right? No disrespect to anybody out there. Kobe is, but like he said, in order to be great, you have to fall in love with the process of becoming great. Right. And so whoever we partner with, if one of our clients are coming through, so you've got to want to fall in love with the process of being great. And then that's how the outcomes then happen. But so that's what the mentality is. I don't want to do things like it used to be. I don't want to do the traditional training. I'm not interested in the enterprise accounts. So I want to do something different. And that's how this will become sustainable, is that because our goals in 10 years is to impact 1 million people. And impact for us is if one learner goes through our program, they have a significant other and a person they're responsible for. So that would be 3 people total. So in 10 years, we want it. So that's 333,333.
Okay, I want to make certain I heard your story correctly, because on the first iteration, you were heavily dependent on grants and discretionary budget spending in order to make this happen. I got a lot of bugbears if you get to know me. One thing I hate is innovation theater. I hate it when some politician, in my case, a general, comes touting out because he's got some big plan and he's going to use the headset that I love to pitch this plan that's going to be way more expensive than it should be, but he's going to razzle dazzle them with this awesome device. Man, I hate that. It's like, no, I want this to be boring. Like,
success is
air
boring.
conditioner with
Boring.
Like what you're doing. So what my question though is, how do you make this to where the companies that are hiring these guys start paying for this, and you're not having to depend on a campaign promise that's
a great question.
The legislature might axe right before you're trying to make happen. Because I remember the days when nurses actually got hired by hospitals, and they trained at the hospital. They didn't have to go get a degree to become a nurse. They just showed up at the hospital. They trained them. They paid for them. Because they had an incentive to do that. Do you have such a thing with your business and how you're proceeding with this, where you're not dependent on grants and budgets?
Well, I'm unemployed because of that, right? So I'm going to always have a motivation. And I'm no disrespect to my other organization, I absolutely appreciate everything they did, right? It was just the economies of scale what happened. So I don't ever want to be in that position again. So we're looking to bootstrap this thing. We believe, because of what we did before, we believe we can create the revenue necessary for it. But also we believe, anyway, what we believe is that by focusing on getting people employed and making sure they have a job 6 months later, that is going to create a bridge for us. That's going to create a flow that requires them to be in it. And so therefore, we believe that I don't want our customers to ever pay, but there's grant opportunities that are out there. And that's one of the things that I look. So now that I know that's the reason, what we're going to do is when we set up these pilots, I'm never going to go full-fledged with the customer right away. We're always going to do just 5 learners. And what I want to do is prove whatever outcomes they want. And then after that, we will then decide to scale it. Now, what we will uncover in that time period is who are the other decision makers? What are the other pieces? But show it with the 5 first, no more than 10. And then we can do that. So to your answer, Dan, that kind of gives us an opportunity to really step scale this the correct way. And then what we tell our employers and what they value the most is that, okay, yeah, I'm taking a chance on somebody but they're hiring people with no experience anyway. If someone's got a fun way of learning, it's oftentimes going to bring in a younger person. And then they have somebody saying, I'm going to commit that they have a job 6 months later. I think that'll mitigate the risk of the employer. And then we have a burden to make sure that this person does well in the interview for that. And I think that's the last part of what we're doing now. So all our guys passed their certification. The last 2 weeks, it's just interview prep, essential skill development, and really just hammering them on that. And so us staying with them for 6 months afterwards has really, we believe, lessened the blow. But we also need people, once people actually do it, and are good employees, I think that's going to it's going to become an exponential increase. And my goal would then be for them not to come to me, but to go to the DC Dream Center, the nonprofit who let me come in here. And now you pay them a referral fee for coming. So now they know every 12 weeks, 20 HVAC people are coming out of DC, right? And then the next cohort might be like, they might say, hey, can your next cohort be plumbing? Because I need plumbers and then you can create that. So you kind of do like and the goal is to keep that learner in our curriculum. So after they do a 12-week program and do HVAC, great. The next time you have another 12 weeks, come back and do plumbing. The next time you have another 12 weeks, come back and but you will always be a part of the 824 community. And so that's how we keep, and then they come back and, it just becomes this self-fulfilling thing.
Nice.
Amazing. Again,
yeah.
What I love is the fact that, like, in enterprise, it's the opposite, right?
Yeah.
It's about, before
Right
you even
opposite.
do it, you got to have ROI, you got to have scale. And I just again, I'm going to say, the way you're speaking is a masterclass, because it's all about impact. And it's so important with what we do. And again, just this is an awesome share. For those that are listening, again, impact is the target, not the profit.
Absolutely. As well as, I got to hand to you the roadmap. You have a very clear vision that allows for flexibility.
It has to be. Because it's got to be a broken product. You can't that's how it gets expensive, right? If I get a finished product and they go, well, one of my teammates, Joshua, taught me the difference between customization and personalization. Customization is expensive. And that's what happens. Whereas really you want to you can personalize something that's a minimal viable product and not sell it, but make sure the customer knows that your job is to help us build this so it's yours, right? And so it's always going to be a minimal viable product that's always going to need to be built. And that's how you keep the economies of scales down on it. I'm not going to have brick and mortar and I don't have a bunch of employees. So, quite frankly, it'll only be my greed and my teammates' greed, but that's not what we're here for. So really the only time this becomes expensive is just wasting our time on the software. But to your point, Mark, and I want to be clear with this. Yes, I love the mission, but to all my P&L people, you want to talk to me about gross margins and beta and everything like that? We can talk about that too. I can tell you that this is something that is a 100x, 1000x, and that's why everybody's getting into this business. Virtual reality hasn't going anywhere. We just got the person that made it the fun thing out of there. But let me be clear to any VCs and anything out there, I can talk that language too and show you that as well. So I want to make sure I'm clear about that. But our impact is the way we do that. Like if we stay focused on that, then it's going to be a volume deal, not a per.
Yeah, we may have to have you back because our resident VC is on his motorcycle right now somewhere in Canada. So,
all right, I do have some hard questions for you though.
Please do. I don't want any loud balls.
Well, yeah, I don't do softballs, man. Yeah.
We know, Dan. We know.
Well, I don't know. I give a damn about this kind of stuff, and I want to make sure
I agree.
We're all doing it right.
Why you're here. Go for it.
Absolutely.
Hardware ecosystems is one, and two is physical footprint. Now, if you ever talk to Bob Cooney, who's kind of a guy that does location-based entertainment, he's always talking about the floor space that you got to rent in air conditioning and power just so you don't run into a wall is ridiculously expensive. And I'm assuming from a few things that you said that you don't really have a physical input, and you're also doing it with a small cohort when you start out. But as you scale things up, like for instance, if you're fixing a semi tractor trailer, you need to be to walk around 50 feet. Otherwise you're doing teleport, which is okay. But you need to go for a long walk, and that means an actual space that you can do it. That's the physical part, but also the ecosystem. Things are narrowing down, well, we could have a long talk about my thoughts on Android XR and where that's going. But if you're locked into Pico or Meta, or if you're really lucky and locked into Vario, I'd love to see you do that someday with plumbing. That would be amazing. Yeah, I could see the welds perfectly on this XR4. Yeah, love to see that. But what I'm saying is you just you have to kind of buy into. I know people say, "Oh, we're hardware agnostic." Yeah, horse shit. you ain't hardware agnostic. You're buying into Meta Systems or Pico Systems or HTC. How do you handle that, especially when I have no idea where things are going to go in the next year and a half? And I hoover this data every single morning trying to figure out what's going to happen with XR.
Yeah, no, I think so. I have a few answers to that. I've learned in my Stoic life that it's all about how you respond, right? So let's assume Meta never makes a headset. Let's assume Pico, yeah, you're right. It's Pico, it's Meta, and let me tell you why it's Meta. For me, it's Meta for me because it's been the best for the skill set. Now, what I mean by the best is I am a firm believer. I think 6DOF is the biggest crap of shit ever. I think that is, it's like 98 premium gas. You don't need 98 premium. So I don't need a 6DOF environment, but 3DOF is essential, right? And so I think in a 3DOF environment, the hardware really isn't going to matter, right? Number two, I think the hardware is just a component. It's just a book. Your teacher is the one that teaches you, right? What I bring is my content comes to life, right? You can have a mouse in a mouse outfit, but if they're not in Orlando and in this big thing, your kid's not going to see it as Mickey Mouse. So what we bring is that experience, right? Because we care about you, individual learner, right? This is just a tool. So we don't really even sell the hardware, right? Like when I talk to these folks, that enterprise folks care about it, right? And they want to get the best this, the best that, and more importantly, they have the budgets for it. I'm dealing with people that have no budgets. So these are folks that are not going to complain about the no frills cornflakes. They're not going to complain about it. What they're glad is they have cornflakes. So my customer base requires me to not have to overcome that objection. And when I say I'm hardware agnostic, I say I pick the one that's going to put you in the best financial position right now. The other factor that I'm working on now is okay, we believe that Meta's price is going to continue to go up. And we believe at some point HTC and them will be about the same. So we are also pricing in our 3 and 5 year model that the price of headsets will go up. Now, I'm hoping it'll be like flat screen TVs and it comes down, right? And I do believe that. I think there's just going to be, now, what my last bold prediction is that I think that, and I'm interested, I didn't like the Meta Pro, but wearables are going to overtake the phone. And so I'm curious to see, other than the headset, and I don't know what it is today. I love the fully immersiveness of VR, but I also understand that XR and AR, those things are. And so I got to figure that these glasses there could be something that goes there. But for me, my customer base is never going to require, because I'll throw up to them and say, all right, well, if you want that headset, you're going to have to pay for it. And that's going to disqualify them right away. So that's not going to hurt because I don't require it being so real to life as maybe some of these other folks require. And so that's now, if I'm wrong, so be it. But if all you ate was Raisin Bran, you're still getting calories, you're still getting, and that's
now, So on the same note, right? Let's broaden it a little bit. Maybe if you could, what were the challenges I'm not going to be nice about it. What were the challenges of getting these types of platforms into your customers?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some sort of road of learning that you had to go through to get it acceptable, right?
Yes. So I think building a relationship with these folks, because you're connected to the learner, gives you a certain level of trust. And I don't want to use that word because I don't want it to sound like kumbaya, but I'm giving people a reason to I'm lining my personal interest behind theirs, right? And so I tell them, if a kid from Philly who grew up in a row home, who worked 25 years in enterprise rent-a-car, who barely knew how to use an iPhone, can go, I learned how to, and I was in the car business, had 8 dealerships, never knew how to do an oil change, and I learned how to do one because I had to teach it to people in the headset. So once I knew I could be good in the headset and that people from CNN want to talk to me, that's proof positive that anybody can do this. And I mean that lovingly. Like, there is no part of my resume that screams that. That is the beauty of our technology, is that if you do care, right? And you do and you can have a little bit of sense about you. You can figure if you're solving it. So I get the trust of my people to know that, hey, we're going to learn together. And then number 2, I'm going to break some stuff. Something's going to go wrong. But what you know is that you got my cell phone. You can always come to me. I'm going to do something about it. And so those 2 things, Now, where I believe I shine at is that I am confident in our ability to drive outcomes. And I think when you can do that, and that only becomes confidence comes from preparation. It doesn't come from arrogance, right? And we're prepared for the moment because I had a million conversations with guys like you. And so now I'm just not being fearful about coming out here and saying it, right? And more importantly, maybe, my rookiness is maybe my advantage, but somebody's got to do it. And so that to answer your question, Dan, that's where I believe, or excuse me, Mark, I believe that is when you stay clearly focused on the end user and you speak their language, and I don't care about, the only credit I care about is my credit score. So if people want the credit, go ahead, right? So that's
I call it giving the gold
reason.
star away. Yep.
Does that answer your question?
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, since we've talked about a lot about XR, but I think one of the questions people are going to have is because we're also talking about these hard skills. So within your training, do you have is it 50-50? So 50% is XR, 50% is actual on an HVAC unit. Do you have any of those deviations?
I don't do, how we do it is kind of okay, anything that is going to require the learner to be able to get that hands-on training, that is 100% VR.
Okay.
There are components of it where the person's going to have to learn the certification game. We can do that in VR, but you don't want to have questions in VR and they're just hitting the button, right? So that might be an avenue for it to be a laptop or something like that. And then lastly, as we do essential skills, that's out of any device and it's a one-on-one contact and communication with either the live facilitator that's there.
Mm-hmm.
And now in the future, we'll have our Mamba agent, our AI agent in there that follows a Socratic method for these learners to be able. So if the learners by themselves in the headset, they can say, hey, I have a question about the airflow for this HVAC unit. And it will require them to have a level of understanding that we can now document. And,
that's awesome.
And so that kind of puts us in that position.
Especially setting up the AI engine in Socratic method. For those that
Absolutely.
aren't in training and development or education that don't understand the Socratic method, it goes back to Socrates. You can Google it at a much later time, but it is a core training philosophy. And a lot of people create these AI engines and just throw them out there. You're actually creating it with an intent behind it. And I don't want to say a level of reasoning, but you're already setting up on how it's going to approach the situation.
Are you ready for this one?
Oh, please.
But wait, there's more.
Well, wait.
So,
is it a set of steak knives? Please be a set of steak knives.
Sir. So, we're going to have these skeptics, right? So now we're going to get these outcomes and then people are going to be like, and Mark kind of alluded to it. Dan kind of alluded to it. All right. Can you really learn how to change an oil all jokes aside. And what I say is, look, you're going to need to do hands-on. But when I went to college, I learned how to do an audit. And if I went to go work for Deloitte, I would not do an audit my first week there. But I know the components of an audit, right? So what we tell people is hands-on is got to go correspond to this, right? It's not in lieu of, it has to. And so what we're looking to do, man, I lost my train of thought. I have a good thought. It's going to come back to me.
Yeah, it will. Usually I've done it like 3 times. I will have done it 3 times by now. So I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Around hands-on, right? And the purpose of hands-on, the value of VR.
Yeah. So now what we're going to do is we have Dr. Leah Miller, who is an absolute unbelievable talent in a lot of different things. But what she's doing with us, a lot of things. But the primary thing she's going to do with us is our hypothesis is that virtual reality and our AI solution and our content will create a level 3 Kilpatrick model behavior change. What that is it'll be a level 3 behavior change. And we are going to prove the neuroscience behind it. And so what she wants to do is a survey where we're going to have, we think 32 of our learners who go through the headset. And then we're going to have 32 other learners that went through traditional training. Our hypothesis is that the VR and AI solution will give the same outcome as the traditional training. And this is 80% less cost effective and 100% safer. But we fundamentally believe that you'll get 2.5x more outcomes. And if that's the case, that is a difference that makes it a no-brainer that had happened. And so what we're going to do is demonstrate a level 3 behavior change. And then after the level 3 behavior change, number 4 is actually getting the result. That's why we say it's one thing. Yes, the VR can prove that they know the HVAC unit, but I need their person that hires them to amplify it. And then when they have that job 6 months later, level 4 of the Kilpatrick model is a result, which most people don't get to. But we can talk about the level 3 behavior change, but no, I want to make sure, and us being able to do that and make sure they have a job 6 months later, we believe proves the whole model. And so that's adding another nuance that I think at that point it's going to be very hard. And so for our whole industry, that's helpful.
That mirrors something that was done in the Air Force called Pilot Training Next, or Pilot Training Transformation, where they took traditional, well, it's a known value what the traditional pilot training was, but to try this new way of syllabus, to have VR available to the pilot students at any time to go in. There were some really good findings from that. The technology did help, but they realized that there needed to be this entire support structure to make certain that the VR headsets were up and ready and running and all that good stuff. Probably things you're not worried about, but it was a very interesting study, and I think it's going to be something that's going to be used for stepping stones for later transformations.
Well, Dan, it's funny you said that, because my first experience when I got the vehicles for change, the company we were using was called HTX Labs. They were out of Houston, Texas. It was Scott and Chris. Well, that is
Scott Steiner, I know him. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Scott, they're the one, we used their software when we did the vehicles for change thing. And so we know exactly, we used it. So they used it for their entry level mechanics so we're like, if the Air Force is using this and they're training mechanics on that, then obviously us. So that's how it started. We started with HTX Labs. And when I tell you I didn't know anything, now Scott lovingly, I mean, Scott's this big time CEO, and here's this kid who knows nothing of that, right? So to their credit, and I'm not supposed to do promotions or whatever, but if it was not for Scott, Chris, Dre, and those guys at HTX Labs who really walked me through and they did it for nothing, right? They knew, because they were so proud of supporting our mission. And I know they took a short on us, and certainly their sanity with me. But those guys, so to your point, we were like, yo, if the Air Force is using it, why not me? So HTX Labs, you're exactly right. We saw that. So you're 100%.
And I bet this helps out with your pitch. That so whenever I had to do a walk around inspection of an aircraft, they needed to take an airplane off the line. And it was like a perfectly good aircraft, and it's not flying, which means taxpayers are losing money. And just so some dumb second lieutenant can walk around in a circle.
1,000%.
But
1,000%.
So as you're selling your services, you're like, hey, you don't need to buy the big old, broken air conditioner and have the guys do it. We can do this all virtually, and you're paying an absolute fraction.
There's no
but the immersiveness of the technology, though, let me tell you, I go to Universal every year for the past 20 years. I get Spider-Man's my favorite ride. I can tell you that ride verbatim. And every time at the end, when you're up there at the top and your things, I almost crap myself every time. And I know what's going to happen. I'm looking at the people next to me in the box, and I still feel like, oh my God, I'm going to crash. It's not possible. So you're getting that. That's the hard part to duplicate in the other, like MR, XR, AR. In VR, you can, and one of our people this is what the one girl said to me when we were in a correctional facility. She said, Geoff, you have to understand, when you're in this headset, it's the only time I'm in prison where I don't feel like I'm in prison. I don't see bars. Every time else, I'm always seeing bars. But when I put my headset on, I never see bars. I don't ever feel like I'm in jail. So people want to be in this program, maybe not to be a mechanic, but what they do is they want to, and that's how the one girl, she's like, I didn't want to be a mechanic. I just wanted to be in this headset so I could, and then when I did it, I said, well, I might as well learn something. And she ended up finishing second in her class. So that was an unintended consequence. Now, of course, we're not offering this just to people in correction facilities, but what it does prove is that it gives you a way to separate yourself from the hustle and bustle, especially in this environment. That headset gives you an opportunity to just relax and just chill and be very myopic and being able to learn right? And then it's forcing you, I have an AI agent that's forcing you to finish off by asking a question to show your level. So it's a blue book test. It's not multiple choice. So we're not going to ask who was in the Civil War. We're going to say, hey, walk me through how General such and such was thinking in that time. And what would you have done if you were like, that's going to make you have to show a level of acumen. And that can all be documented in be fact-based. So, that is the immersiveness of the technology is a lot more than just the X's and O's of learning the task. But that is the primary place where we get the behavior change. And then, of course, certifications and stuff do matter. You have to get some practical knowledge. But the place I now have to go to, Dan, is employee. Like when I go to my 12-week program, I'm trying to have a field trip every Friday. So the field trip would be, hey, every Friday, you guys got to go out to a real place with a real person. And then ideally, I want it to be the employee partners that I have that are going to hire these folks. So now, Dakin comes there on one Friday and takes my 5 learners and goes and shows them the practical thing that they just did all week, right? And then you kind of create so you have like a field trip. That's a live field trip. So they get that practical. And then when they get the hands-on, they'll get it when they start. And most people, if they're going to hire somebody with no experience, at least this person has a certification, has EPA 608, has NATE, has not, has all the certifications.
Well, that hands-on is absolutely crucial because I think a very important thing to learning is just a little bit of risk. And if you're in VR, there's zero risk other than stepping on your cat. So, which I think is a very, very large risk personally for me.
Yeah.
But yet I do it. But you get what I mean. Like in order to really cement it, you ain't going to learn your lines through the plane until you're actually
it hardens the neural link.
Yeah.
Well, that's where you go, I did it. And so that's why I say to people like, hey, I'm not anti you. I'm just making it easy. And when they come to you, aren't you tired of saying, hey, pass the drill and they pass you their cell phone? Like that's just going to frustrate you more. You know what I mean? So I was like, you still have to do your job, but like at least they know what they're like kind of doing. And more importantly, you need youth in, you need youth. Now, I don't know this whole Gen Z that's bullshit. I can tell you, bull crap.
No, please. You're fine.
We have an E rating.
Okay. But I will, F. Oh, sorry.
You'll just be talking Dan's language.
That's a lot of beeps. That's a lot of beeps.
I feel like me and Dan could have our own podcast.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing is that we always tell everybody that's on, if you ever want to come back or if you want to join. So Dan was actually a guest who ended up joining because he likes the conversations.
I love it. We can be the ball, something to do with ball heads and beards, some shit like that.
Yeah, I can't relate yet. Oh, well, for half of it,
sir. But yeah, but that's really it. And so now I'm looking to find like friends like you and just keep having these conversations, and that's like, I'm not being funny, I'm being scientific. One thing I like about the marijuana community is that it's very collective. Like you go into a dispensary, like it's a very collective group of people. And I feel that way about the skilled trades. I feel like it's a collective group of people that really care about their deal. Right. And so, it's not a matter of if, it's when. And so it's just, let's just get these things. And that's what Gene and I kind of talked about. But you have to have this faith, right? If it wasn't for my passion for wanting to help these folks out, I would have been out of this a long time ago, right? If I had succumbed to the peer pressure, which I may in 6 months have to, right? Yeah, I might come back in 6 months and say, well, it didn't work out. It
was fun, Joe.
I don't think that's the case. I hope your Canadian VC comes in and saves the day for me, but he's in Canada right now. So
I know he is going to be listening. He was upset he wasn't able to join.
No, that's okay.
But no, I mean, but that's the thing I think that everybody's going to walk away with about the story is that you're actually achieving it though. You're actually out there you're getting the numbers and you're proving a lot of theories right or wrong, but you're getting the results. I mean, like for me, as we were talking about Kirkpatrick and all this, I sit here and keep thinking how far up on Bloom's taxonomy you're going for objective setting and
Absolutely.
For that. Most of the time with standard training, we could only go for the very low levels of Bloom's, the rote memorization. With this, you're now proving out analysis, synthesis. You're proving out those much deeper levels that have a greater connections, which I think is awesome. And I can tell you, for a lot of us that have been in it for a long haul, it's inspiring to see these ideas being played out, because we've been waiting for the enterprises to bite, and they bite for a little bit. And then as soon as there's a new leader in charge who doesn't see it, everything's cut.
Yeah. And I will say, quite frankly, if it wasn't for, Marty Schwartz, Marty Schwartz was the CEO who brought me on board and took a chance on me. And if it wasn't for his crazy idea and, more importantly, his dynamic nonprofit, I wouldn't be here today. And even though it didn't work out the way I necessarily wanted it to, I want to make sure that I give him his absolute praise. It was his idea. And, I just added my level to it, with it. And that's just the amalgamation. That amalgamation is what I'm trying to create. I want to be very clear with you, is his vision. Vehicles for Change had the ability to back up his vision, but Marty Schwartz was the one. And Jeff Bunn was the board member who brought it to there. Those were the two that had the vision for it. And I will always make sure they get the praise for that, because the passion is in doing it for the organization.
Right. The one thing I love about your story is that you had a lot of people there to support you, right? But also
100%.
The saying I always have is, right, the most passionate person to me, right, it wouldn't have happened if you weren't such a great XR doer, right? If you didn't do it, right? So with that, that's where, for me, hearing the story specifically on this, podcast, it's cool, because there's not a lot of people, to your point, right? Or to the points of Steve Jobs when they did the crazy campaign, right? The geniuses, right? The genius in the insanity of passion, right, is really what got you where you get. And for a lot of us, and probably those listening to this podcast, right, it's that crazy that keeps us going. So, again, a good story, and we'll have discussions outside of here, because
I hope so.
What you guys are doing is really some good stuff.
And the more we do, the more I need your help. Like it's like Magneto from X-Men. Like, he got hit and got bigger, right? It's like, as we grow, I need more people to help out, and it'll be a lot easier, once we're, in a position where it's beneficial, quote unquote, to everybody. But for right now, we're the early adopters. I just remember everybody saying how Uber was never going to be at the airport. So we're at a different era. I'm not trying to. I think what people are really going to have to start thinking about is not how bad everything is. I think we're going to have to start thinking about what life with all this abundance is about to become, right? That's where I think people are going to have the ultimate chaos. It's like, you're so used to thinking you have to work 70-some hours a week. Now you don't have to work for a company anymore. There's going to be no companies to work for, right? Yeah. And one of the points you guys made earlier is colleges is where employers got employees. And now that relationship is being damaged because employers don't necessarily have to go to 4-year colleges anymore. Well, I always ask the people in the skilled trades, I say, where do employers of skilled trades get employees of skilled trades? And I still haven't gotten an answer. Like, they start saying unions, and I'm like, okay, well, then walk me through what that looks like. I've never seen any. So there is a disconnect in that, right? And so what our technology does is we meet people where they are, right? And that's the beauty of our technology. We could meet people where they are. If they don't have the building, or they don't have the capital, or if they don't have internet, or if they don't, whatever the restriction is, our technology can meet them where they are. Number two, the second thing is to make sure they get a certification that matters. And that certification, we know it because we talked to the employers who said, these are the certifications that matter, right? I didn't say it. That's what the employer that's going to hire them said. Third, get them a job, right? But not just one job, give them options so they can choose a job that turns into a career. And then fourth and last is to make sure they have that job 6 months later. When you offer that solution, then the technology is not really it. The technology is just a mechanism, whereas I think everybody, they sell the toy rather than selling the experience of what the toy is going to do to you, with you, right? And so I think, then that's what makes the technology stand out, when it's not the bell at the ball. It just becomes the mechanism of getting people to, again, success is boring, right? And so to Dan's point earlier, if all I have is MetaQuest 3s or 4s or whatever that comes out, it's okay. because I don't have a huge burden that I have. I'm not training neuroscientists, right? I'm training somebody how to do basics in skill traits, right? And so it doesn't require maybe some of those depths. But once we show a good profit model, that's what's going to help out our business, right? Is it when it's not just a feel good and that people go, and that's what's going to happen when that 43-year-old mom goes, hey, I'm not sending my daughter to college. I'm going to send her to trade school. We're about 10 years away from that.
No,
and
but
so,
oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I just hope that I'm not a fan of legislating this because I think we're going to have this pendulum swing every 8 years. So I'm not from the legislating school of it. I'm for creating your own system school, right? And that's it. If I get plug and play solutions and put them in nonprofits and community centers and workforce development in the neighborhood that these folks are at, and then find employers in that same area. Well, transportation can't be a barrier to employment if your job is within walking distance. Now, I don't want to hear about you not having a car. I don't care if you can't get car insurance. I don't care if you don't have a driver's license. Okay, those will be systemic things I can't change. But what I can do is bring the job right in front of your house. What I can do is bring my training in your house. What I can do is those things. And now it's up to you to be able to, and so you meet them where they are, then that's how people want to do what they want to do.
Nice. Yeah, I honestly, I keep thinking, I'm like, in a couple months, want to have you back after you get a couple cohorts in, and just to hear, I would love to hear the results. I think I
want to bring my
everybody.
Learners up. I would talk to my learners. I'm like, hey, and you can go unhinged with them. They're crazier than me. They'll tell you for real.
Maybe we'll have an episode where we have you and a couple of your learners. And because honestly, I think I see everybody nodding their head because I think it'd be great to hear their perspective on it rather than
lay down the torch or the wrench. What's the after effect, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be the title right there.
No, and that's perfectly on. I mean, I wear these goofy goggles every damn day, and I want to see
the learners.
He doesn't.
Yeah. And they'll tell you, like, look, I thought Geoff was crazy. And I thought, hey, but if someone's going to say, what they'll tell you is, hey, if someone's going to bring this to me, not make me pay and tell me they're going to get a job, I'll give them 12 weeks. That's basically it. So if you go in on saying you can help them and then that's it. And if I don't, then I say, hey, well, you can tell me to go beat it, but like, I think that's what they'll tell you. They'll be like, hey, it was too good to be true, but I had nothing to lose. And then now, and I think if we get to that place, I think we'll be able to execute different.
No, that's absolutely awesome. And with that, I know we ran over. So those that are listening, thank you guys for hanging on.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. No, I've been in the chat saying we're going to run long. But I think we definitely want to have you back. If you ever want to come back just to be a part of it or to chat, please feel free. But otherwise, you're going to have an open seat. And I think it would be exciting to have, like I said, have you back in a couple months after cohorts, not only to continue this conversation, but to really, like I said, to start looking at some of these results that you're going to get. I can't wait.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Because I really think that the mission then is going to become, hey, who else wants to come do this, right? And I think I'll be able to have a little bit of a business model. I'm not trying to be greedy, but for a couple of dollars, I'll show you how to do it. And then you can go and take this and, I'm teaching people how to fish. I don't want to fish for you. I want to go play golf. So this fishing stuff's out for the birds. I want to go play golf. He's like, but I can't do that right now because we have to solve this problem. But that's what I want. My vision is to make people like, hey, have no fear because you too can do it. And once we do that, because I thought you had to be like summa cum laude and you had to have like coding 505, and AI certainly has been helpful. You know what I mean? But once I was able to actually do it, and my favorite quotes from Master Yoda, do or do not. There is no try. And so it's like, all right, well, okay.
Thank you for dropping the star. And with Yoda's grand words, we will call it. That was fantastic. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Like I said, we're going to have Geoff back, but on the LinkedIn page and on wherever, on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Music, we will have links to 824 Solutions. So if you want to check out, I highly recommend checking out what he's doing, as well as we will have everything linked for LinkedIn links. So please reach out if you have any questions, as well as if you have any thoughts for future episodes, please feel free to drop an email. So with that, thank you guys for joining. Geoff, Thank you so much. This was fantastic.
You have no idea. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And guys, be sure to follow us. And we'll talk to you next time on the Neon Protocol.